I stepped off the train and walked past the grocery that used to be a bookshop, toward the house where I learned my first songs and my first fears. The porch looked smaller, the trees looked taller, and a quiet question rose like mist from damp earth. If the place that built me has changed, am I still the person who once ran up these steps with scraped knees and oversized dreams? The gate had a new latch that turned smoothly where the old one used to squeak and resist. The tug I felt went deeper than nostalgia, as if the afternoon were testing my name and waiting to see if I would claim it. Philosophers gave that feeling a ship and a legend. The Ship of Theseus asks whether something remains itself when every part is replaced and nothing original survives. Imagine a vessel repaired for years, plank by plank and rope by rope, until no old piece remains anywhere on deck. Is it still the same ship, or has identity slipped away while the form stayed familiar? Some say yes because pattern and purpose endure through careful repair. Others say no, because identity lives in the parts rather than the plan. A playful twist asks which ship is original if the discarded planks are rebuilt elsewhere and sent to sea under the same proud name. Standing on that porch from childhood, the ship felt unavoidably personal. If my cells have turned over and my habits have shifted, what anchors the feeling of being me across seasons? The question matters because every choice leans on a picture of a continuing self. We aim at goals, believing a future self will care, and we keep promises because we hope someone steady will be there to keep them. To explore without drifting, use 3 windows. One shows the changing body, one shows the evolving story, one shows the commitments that endure when weather turns rough. Begin with the body because it meets the waves first and last. Our bodies grow, heal, scar, and age, and those changes shape experience as surely as tides shape a shore. People often say most cells are replaced across about a decade, and the spirit of that claim still lands with force. You are not made of the same living pieces you carried long ago, yet you still find your keys and make your coffee without a second thought. Continuity rides on change like a surfer on a restless wave, balancing in motion rather than standing on a floor that never moves. The brain clarifies and complicates at once because some neurons endure, while their connections reroute with practice and pressure. New pathways strengthen as we repeat actions, unused ones fade like empty roads, and emotions leave marks that quietly steer attention. A famous 19th century railroad accident left a man walking and talking, but temperamentally altered, a reminder that changing the brain can pull identity in new directions. Now step to the second window and consider the story we tell ourselves. Memory is not a perfect archive with labeled shelves. Recall is reconstruction shaped by the needs of the present moment. Think of a small theater troupe improvising with familiar props, keeping the plot recognizable while adjusting lines to suit today's audience. Confidence and accuracy do not always travel together, yet memory still aims at meaning rather than sabotage. A flexible narrative integrates lessons and can reinterpret hardship as training rather than permanent damage. A rigid narrative becomes a decorated cage that quietly shrinks a life and refuses revisions that would help it breathe. We lean on milestones like a chorus we repeat. I am the oldest child. I am someone who never quits. I am the person who crossed an ocean with stubborn suitcases. These lines give the story a spine, yet sometimes the chorus must be rewritten when new truth arrives with authority. People who survive trauma often feel split into a before and an after that struggle to converse, and healing becomes the work of translation. People who reinvent careers or countries carry a biographical accent that never fully fades, blending origin and aspiration into one voice. Now look through the third window where commitments live beneath the waterline. Commitments act like a keel, invisible from the dock yet essential to balance in rough weather and long crossings. Some vows bind us to people we love and choose again, even when energy is low and patience is thin. Some vows bind us to principles we refuse to rent out, like telling the truth when it costs and offering kindness when nobody keeps score. Other vows bind us to craft and service, returning to the page, the instrument, or the workshop regardless of mood or applause. When body, story, and commitments align, the self feels steady and spacious. When any two fight the third, the self feels strained and noisy, as if the wheel pulls against the current. Not everyone agrees these windows explain the whole house. Some say identity rests on a stable essence that does not change, a soul or deep temperament that persists beneath circumstance. Others define identity as psychological continuity, a chain of overlapping intentions, memories, and character traits where no single state spans a lifetime, yet the sequence holds like a braided rope. Everyday life supports both stability and change, and refuses to pick sides. People quit smoking and rediscover the smell of rain, and ordinary joy returns with surprising color. Others leave relationships where they learn to shrink, and they practice taking up honest space without apology. Sometimes change arrives uninvited and without mercy. Illness rearranges priorities overnight, and grief makes familiar rooms feel strange, testing our belief that identity can survive turbulence and testing communities that claim to care. Practical strategies can cultivate continuity without freezing growth. Write to your future self and send care packages downriver, translating today's clarity into tomorrow's support. Journal like a lighthouse, recording dates, feelings, and small truths that prove you have navigated storms before. Build personal rituals that make values tangible, like a candle before hard conversations, or a daily walk that teaches sameness and change to hold hands. Protect commitments with boundaries that refuse profitable betrayals and keep the chosen road from eroding under pressure. If deliberate identity work sounds stiff, aim for supple strength. Be principled without brittleness and adaptive without losing recognizable shape. Like a tree bending in wind while reaching for the same dependable sun. Bring the Ship of Theseus back into view and ask what truly carries identity across years. Perhaps it is not a single plank or even the whole hull, but the pattern of movement, the intentions renewed, and the community that still recognizes your silhouette against the horizon. Consider the hard case where memory thins and stories blur. When a spouse sits beside a bed unseen by recognition, their promise becomes a bridge across the water of forgetfulness, reminding us that continuity is not only within, but also between people who keep faith. There will still be mornings when your voice sounds unfamiliar in your own mouth. Ask smaller questions on those mornings, because small questions can be answered with action. What value can you embody in the next hour, and what simple ritual would whisper continuity, even when the melody feels faint? As I stepped back from the old porch, a teenager I had never met opened the door with curious eyes. I thanked them for caring for a place that once cared for me, and walking away I realized I had not lost a home so much as learned how to carry one. Under your feet the road is both familiar and new, and that paradox is not a problem, but a guide. In your chest the rhythm stays steady and improvisational, ready for the next unwritten verse. If identity is a ship, a story, and a promise, your hands still hold the wheel as the river keeps moving. Last time we stood on a familiar porch and asked whether a self that has swapped so many parts can still be called the same. We peered through 3 windows, the changing body, the evolving story, and the commitments that endure, and found a way to keep sailing without pretending the sea stands still. Now let us step back and test the strongest countercurrents, because good ideas earn their keep by surviving the wind. Some people say identity rests on an essence that does not change, a bedrock that persists beneath every repair. Others argue the opposite, claiming that the self is an illusion stitched by memory and language, a useful fiction that dissolves when you look too closely. The essentialist view offers comfort because it promises ground when waves are high. You see it in the experience of temperament, that recognizable tone of a person that shows up in childhood and somehow keeps speaking in adulthood. Even when habits change and stories are rewritten, a familiar flavor remains, and families notice it at crowded tables. But essence alone can be too static to explain the way a crisis reshapes someone from the inside out. A soldier returns with quieter eyes, and even their jokes arrive from a different room. A new parent speaks in a voice they do not remember practicing, and their calendar becomes a map of love rather than ambition. The ship is still the ship, yet the voyage has carved the hull. On the other bank flows the no self-claim, which points out how the mind is a bundle of processes with no single owner hiding inside. Watch your thoughts with patient attention, and you will notice they arise and pass like weather. Desire flares, fear tightens, relief loosens, and none of those clouds can be the sky itself. The no self-insight can be liberating because it loosens the grip of old labels. If you are not a fixed object, you are not doomed by yesterday's definition or trapped by last year's worst day. You can forgive. You can revise. You can try again without the weight of a permanent verdict. Yet taken too far, the no-self view risks dodging responsibility and diluting love. Promises require a promiser. Apologies require a continuity that takes ownership. Relationships are not contracts with a mist. They are bonds between people who mean what they say today and intend to mean it again tomorrow. A useful reconciliation is to treat essence, process, and promise as partners rather than rivals. Think of a melody played on many instruments across many rooms. The melody is the temperament you recognize. The arrangement is the story you tell and retell. The performance is the commitment you keep showing up to honor, even when you are tired or afraid. Technology gives the old puzzle new edges. Our digital traces persist far longer than the versions of us that made them, and our online personas can outlive the moods that created them. You can scroll a decade of yourself in an evening and meet opinions you barely remember holding, which is humbling and sometimes mortifying. There is a quiet invitation hidden in that discomfort. Curate your public narrative with the same care you bring to your private one, not for perfection, but for coherence. Pin the values you want future you to recognize, and let your posts and projects echo those values, often enough that the pattern becomes legible even to strangers. Some fear that deliberate identity work will turn a life into branding, all polish and no depth. The antidote is sincerity married to practice. Do the things that the person you hope to be would do, and let the record of those actions become your reputation. A clean plan without lived evidence is decoration. A modest plan with repeated follow-through is character. We can go deeper on commitments by distinguishing anchors from tethers. Anchors are heavy obligations that hold you in one place for good reasons, like caring for a parent who needs help, or honoring a marriage through illness. Tethers are lighter lines that keep you in range of a value while still allowing movement, like a weekly call to a friend, a monthly donation to a cause, or a daily practice that can flex with your schedule. Anchors guard what must not drift. Tethers protect what should not vanish. A life with only anchors may suffocate. A life with only tethers may evaporate. Identity breathes best when anchors and tethers share the load. When should you change a plank, and when should you keep repairing it? Use a simple test that respects all three windows. Ask whether the change serves your body's health rather than only your impulses. Ask whether it fits the next chapter of your story rather than just the current scene. Ask whether it strengthens your best commitments rather than distracting from them with shiny urgency. If 2 out of 3 answers are a clear yes, you probably have permission to swap the plank. If 2 out of 3 answers are a clear no, hold your fire and hold your course. The test is not perfect, but it rescues you from decision fog when emotions and opinions compete for the wheel. A second test is the neighbor test for psychological continuity. Imagine your future neighbor meeting you a year from now and then meeting you today. Would they guess they are speaking to the same person who has learned new skills, or to 2 different people with conflicting codes? Aim for continuity that an outsider could sense without knowing your biography. There's also a small habit that builds long bridges with very little drama. Every week, write down one action that proved a value you want to keep. Perhaps you told the truth in a meeting that rewarded politeness over clarity. Perhaps you rested on a day that rewarded hustle over health. Perhaps you chose generosity when scarcity anxiety begged for hoarding. Collect those proofs in a single place and reread them when identity feels thin. They become a logbook that rows you back to yourself, stroke by patient stroke. We should honor the hard cases again, because tidy models must bow to messy lives. When memory thins or fractures, continuity is upheld by those who love you and keep your name intact. When illness narrows the body's capacities, continuity is carried by gentler stories and wiser commitments. When grief rearranges the furniture of your days, continuity survives in rituals that do not require explanations to work. Think of the way communities rally after loss, delivering meals, sending messages, sitting quietly beside empty chairs. These acts do not repair the ship, at least not quickly, but they keep it from slipping under. Identity is a team sport more often than we admit. Now return to the Ship of Theseus and apply the river lens it has earned. A ship invites us to ask about parts. A river invites us to ask about flow. The river is always itself because the banks give it shape and the source gives it purpose. Yet the water is always new because time never sends the same drop twice. Your body is part of the river's banks, guiding the current with strength and limitation. Your story is the way the river names its bends, its rapids, and its quiet pools. Your commitments are the source that keeps feeding the stream even in dry months. When those 3 cooperate, you feel the forward pull that people mean when they say they know who they are. Let us translate that metaphor into practices you can carry tomorrow morning. Choose 3 bankstones, 1 physical ritual, 1 narrative ritual, and 1 promise ritual. The physical ritual might be a stretch, a prayer, a song, or a cup of water you drink with attention before the day begins. The narrative ritual might be a 2-minute journal line that says who you are becoming and why today matters. The promise ritual might be a quick message of care sent to a person you have chosen to love on purpose. Do them when you feel like it and when you do not. Rituals do their best work on ordinary days. If you crave a bolder experiment, write 2 letters this month. 1 to your future self 6 months away and 1 from that future self back to you. In the first, ask for help with the hardest trade-offs you face. In the second, answer with the kindness and clarity you would give a friend. Seal them, date them, and put them where you will not forget. You are building a bridge between versions of you who will otherwise pass each other like strangers. Let us not forget forgiveness, because continuity without forgiveness becomes a museum of complaints. You will fail your own ideals. You will replace a plank poorly and wobble until you fix it again. Forgiveness does not erase responsibility. It returns you to it with steadier hands. We are nearly back at the porch where this journey began, and the question has changed shape without losing force. Are you the same person who once ran up those steps? You are and you are not, and the wisdom lives in refusing to force a single answer when a truthful harmony is available. You are the body that learns and the body that wears its learning. You are the story that edits toward meaning. You are the promise that keeps showing up. You are the river that stays itself by moving. Before we close, let the questions do their quiet work. Which banks of your river need shoring so the current can run stronger? Which bends do you want to explore because curiosity is calling louder than fear? Which old plank deserves retirement? And which overlooked plank deserves repair? If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Like the river you return to, you will remain yourself by flowing toward what matters.